Did you know that the foods you eat every single day can actually shape how well you age? And not just that, some of them may even help you live longer, but not just longer in years, longer in good health. That is the real goal, right? Because nobody wants to just add more candles to the birthday cake if those extra years are packed with illness, weakness, and poor quality of life. What we really want is more good years, more strong years, more active years, more years where your body still feels like it is on your side. And that is exactly what this is about. As we get older, our blood vessels do not stay as resilient as they were when we were younger. That slow decline drives many of the diseases we usually associate with aging, things like heart disease, cancer, and dementia. But here's the good news, and honestly, this is the part that should give you some hope. What you eat can directly influence these hallmarks of aging. That means food is not just fuel, it can also be a tool, a powerful tool. A tool that helps us fight back against the deterioration that usually comes with getting older. So if you had to pick just a few foods to eat regularly to support your longevity, what would they be? Today, I want to break down 5 foods you should seriously consider adding into your routine. And more importantly, I want to explain why they matter and what the science is actually saying. Because when you understand the why, it becomes a whole lot easier to make these foods part of your everyday life. The first food is something many people already use every day, but they may not realize just how powerful it really is, and that is extra virgin olive oil. I always keep a couple of bottles of extra virgin olive oil in my kitchen at all times, and the reason is simple. Extra virgin olive oil sits right at the heart of healthy Mediterranean cooking, and that style of eating is widely known as one of the healthiest ways to eat. And this is not just theory, there is solid human evidence behind it. Now, before I go deeper into olive oil, I want to make one thing very clear. When I talk about longevity, I am not just talking about living longer. I am talking about living longer with better health. That stretch of life where you are still feeling well, still moving well, still thinking clearly, that is called healthspan. And that is actually a much more meaningful idea than lifespan alone. Lifespan is just how many candles you blow out on your birthday cake. Healthspan is the part that really matters. How many of those years are actually spent in genuinely good health? What most people do not realize is that as we age, there are changes happening inside the body that we cannot see, but they affect our cells very deeply. These are called the hallmarks of aging, meaning the things that are characteristic of aging itself. Researchers have identified several of them. One is inflammation, which tends to increase as we get older. Another is our blood vessels, which become less resilient with age. Another is metabolism, which shifts from healthier patterns when we are young into less healthy patterns when we are older. And then there are changes in the gut microbiome, our healthy gut bacteria, which also play a huge role in overall health. These shifts are not small. They help drive many of the diseases we connect with aging, including heart disease, cancer, and dementia. But here is the positive part again, because it really matters. What you eat can directly influence those same processes. Food can help shape these hallmarks of aging. And that means it can help us fight back against the ravages, the destruction, the deterioration that people often assume is just part of getting older. We are actually seeing this in human studies too. So let us go back and look again at extra virgin olive oil. And notice, I am not just saying olive oil, I am saying extra virgin olive oil. That difference matters. Extra virgin olive oil has been studied in the Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals' Follow-Up Study, 2 huge population studies. What they found was pretty impressive. People who consumed higher amounts of extra virgin olive oil had a 19% lower risk of death from any cause. In research, that kind of outcome is called all-cause mortality. It is a broad measure, but that is exactly why it is so important. It tells you a lot about the power of one food choice when it comes to overall health. Extra virgin olive oil is also linked with meaningful reductions in death from cardiovascular disease, from cancer, and from dementia as well. And the study also looked at how much olive oil was connected to the benefit. I like to call that the dose. And the good news is that the beneficial dose is not even that much. Just 1 to 4 tablespoons per day. Let us call it around 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Now, at first you might think, 3 tablespoons? That sounds like a lot. But honestly, if you eat in a Mediterranean-style way, it is very easy to reach that amount. Let me give you a few simple examples. If you are making breakfast and you scramble your eggs with extra virgin olive oil instead of butter, that already gets you part of the way there. At lunch, you could have a salad with an extra virgin olive oil dressing, maybe mixed with a little balsamic vinegar. Just make sure it is truly extra virgin because that is where the polyphenols are. Then at dinner, maybe you roast some chicken, salmon, or vegetables and drizzle them with extra virgin olive oil. Boom. Just like that, you have basically reached your 3 tablespoons for the day. So how does extra virgin olive oil actually work? Well, the first thing to understand is that everything good in extra virgin olive oil originally comes from the olive itself, the fruit of the olive tree. It gets pressed, and a lot of the good stuff ends up in the oil. Extra virgin means it has not been overly processed or filtered down. It is the first press, and you may have seen that on the label before. It usually has a bit of color to it, kind of greenish, and that is a good sign because it means it still contains the polyphenols from the olive. These include compounds like hydroxytyrosol and oleuropein. And do not worry if the names sound like tongue twisters. The important thing is what they do. They are anti-inflammatory, and they also help protect the lining of your blood vessels, which means better circulation. That is a big deal because healthier blood vessels are closely tied to the health of all your other organs, especially as you age. If you want to get the most out of extra virgin olive oil, there are a few important tips you should keep in mind. First, always buy extra virgin olive oil in an opaque glass container or in a metal container like a tin, not clear glass, and definitely not plastic. Sometimes you see olive oil in clear bottles at the grocery store, but light can get into those bottles and start degrading the quality of the oil. And plastic is even worse because the oil can actually pull compounds from the plastic into itself over time. Extra virgin olive oil is strong enough that it can start to interact with that plastic, and that is not what you want. Second, once you bring it home, store it in a cool, dark place, like a pantry with the door shut. Under the sink can be fine too. Just keep it away from heat and away from sunlight. Do not store it next to the stove, and do not keep it by a window. Heat and sunlight can break down some of the beneficial polyphenols, those anti-inflammatory compounds you want to protect. Third, if you really want to get the most from your olive oil, look for what I call monovarietal olive oils. That means the oil was pressed from just one type, one variety of olive. These monovarietal oils often naturally have the highest levels of polyphenols. More good stuff. That is what we want. And if you are shopping for Spanish olive oil, look for picual olives, spelled Picual. Those are known for high polyphenol levels. If you are buying Italian extra virgin olive oil, look for monovarietals made from Moriolo, spelled Moraiolo, or Coratina, spelled Coratina. And if you are looking at Greek olive oil, one of the best choices is Koroniki olives, spelled Koroneiki. Koroniki olives have some of the highest amounts of polyphenols among Greek varieties, and they have also been studied in human research as well as by analytical chemists comparing different extra virgin olive oils. So yes, if you can, go for those Spanish, Italian, or Greek monovarietals. That is how you get the most potent type. All right, ready for the second food? Walnuts. Now I love walnuts, and I always try to keep some in my pantry for snacking or cooking. Walnuts are part of the tree nut family, along with almonds, pistachios, cashews, and other nuts. And in large studies that looked at nut consumption, including the Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals' Follow-up Study, people who ate lots of tree nuts had about a 20% lower risk of death from any cause, and that includes walnuts. How much do you need to eat to get that kind of benefit? The dose is about a small handful a day, roughly 1 ounce. If we are talking walnuts specifically, that comes out to about 14 walnut halves, or around 7 whole walnuts. That is actually pretty easy to imagine as a snack. What makes walnuts so beneficial? They contain a lot of helpful bioactives, including omega-3 fatty acids, alpha-linolenic acid, and ellagic acid. They also contain monounsaturated fats, dietary fiber, and they are a good source of plant protein too. When all of that comes together, it helps reduce inflammation, supports blood vessel health, supports metabolism, and also helps with overall tissue healing. And that matters because inflammation, blood vessel problems, and metabolic issues are all closely tied to how we age. So when you eat walnuts as part of a tree nut habit, you are doing more than just snacking. You are helping support lower inflammation, better vascular health, and better metabolism. And that is one of the ways you help lower the risk of chronic disease over time. One thing I have noticed is that when people replace ultra-processed foods with whole foods like nuts, their metabolism improves in measurable ways. And that shift matters, especially over the long term. If you want to get the most out of walnuts, here are a few simple tips. First, when you are buying them, look for intact walnut halves. They should look kind of like butterfly wings. Avoid small crumbs or mashed up pieces. Why? Because the whole halves stay fresh longer and are less likely to oxidize. The healthy fats in walnuts can go rancid over time, and whole halves stay fresher for longer than broken bits. Second, once you bring them home, store your walnut halves in a sealed container in the refrigerator. Do not just leave them in the pantry or out on the counter. When you seal them and keep them cold, you slow down oxidation and protect those omega-3 fats. If you keep walnuts at room temperature for too long, the healthy fats can break down more quickly. And the great thing is, walnuts are really easy to fit into everyday life. You can throw them into trail mix, snack on them straight, or use them in cooking. That is a much better move than reaching for a bag of ultra-processed chips. Walnuts support gut health because their fiber feeds healthy gut bacteria, and the polyphenols help too. They support metabolism, circulation, and the protein helps maintain muscle mass. So again, even though each of these foods helps in different ways, they are all pointing in the same direction. Better health span as you age. And that is true whether you are young and trying to age well, or older and trying to protect what you have built. A lot of people do not realize just how much everyday food can influence how they age. So yes, subscribe to the channel to learn how to use food in a smarter way to support your health. Next up is one of my favorites, coffee. I drink it every day. I literally start my day with this healthy aging beverage. And in large population studies involving more than 500,000 people, those who regularly drank coffee had about a 15% to 25% lower risk of death from any cause. That is a big deal if your goal is longevity, because if you lower the risk of death from any cause, you are talking about potentially living longer overall. So what amount was linked to that benefit? Around 2 to 5 cups per day. And honestly, that is something many people can manage pretty easily. I know I do it every day, and I am sure plenty of people can fit it into their routine too. What is actually inside coffee that makes it beneficial? Coffee is made from roasted beans from the coffee tree, and it contains hundreds of polyphenols, including chlorogenic acid and caffeic acid. These are antioxidants, and they help protect your cells from accelerated aging. They are also good for metabolism, circulation, and reducing inflammation. Coffee also supports liver health, and drinking coffee has been linked with a lower risk of chronic liver disease. It also benefits brain health, which becomes even more important as we age. You do not just want good health span, you want good brain health span too. So coffee is doing a lot more than simply waking you up in the morning. Yes, it gives you energy and alertness, but it also supports several important systems in the body that are connected to healthy aging and longevity. How do you get the most out of your coffee? A few things matter here. First, avoid flavored or sweetened coffee. I know, especially when the weather cools down, people want the pumpkin-flavored this and the caramel-flavored that from the drive-thru. But honestly, skip it. Those flavored coffees often come with a lot of unnecessary additives and factory-made ingredients that can turn a healthy drink into an unhealthy one. You want to work with your longevity, not against it. Second, do not drink coffee when it is too hot. Very hot beverages have been linked with a higher risk of esophageal cancer because the hot liquid can damage the cells in your throat. That damage causes injury and inflammation, and over time, that creates a setup for changes in the cells that can lead to cancer. And trust me, that is not something you want to play around with. So just let your coffee cool down a bit before you drink it. Open it up, check the temperature, and if it is too hot, set it aside for a little while. Third, if you want to get the full benefit of coffee, avoid dairy milk. If you want to add milk, go with a plant-based option instead. Dairy fat can form soap-like bubbles that bind to the polyphenols, which means when you drink it, some of those benefits get flushed through your system without being absorbed as well. Almond milk or soy milk are both fine. They do not have the same dairy fat, so they will not form those bubbles in the same way, and you preserve more of the coffee's benefits. Next food, yogurt. I like to have whole Greek yogurt as part of my breakfast whenever I can. Yogurt is a fermented food, and fermented foods are known to support gut health and healthy gut bacteria. And healthy gut bacteria means healthier overall body function because the gut influences so many parts of our health. In fact, one of the earliest scientific theories about longevity involved yogurt. It came from a Nobel Prize-winning scientist named Ilya Mechnikov, who observed that Bulgarian monks seemed to live to a ripe old age. He wondered what they were doing, what they were eating, and then he noticed that they regularly ate whole Bulgarian yogurt. From that, he formed the idea that healthy bacteria in yogurt might help people live longer. That was a longevity idea from way back in the 1800s, and modern science is actually backing him up. The reason is simple. The healthy bacteria in yogurt help support your gut microbiome. And in large human studies and prospective groups, people who regularly consumed yogurt had about a 10% lower risk of death from cardiovascular disease and a 5% to 10% lower risk of death from any cause. And the best part is, you do not need a huge amount. The dose linked to benefit was just 1 cup of yogurt per day. That is really not hard to fit in. Yogurt contains live microbes, so you want to look for live bacteria or live active cultures on the label. That is what makes it a probiotic food. It means you are actually eating bacteria that can help contribute to the healthy ecosystem inside your body. And when that ecosystem is fed properly, it starts producing short-chain fatty acids, which lower inflammation. Healthy gut bacteria also improve metabolism, insulin sensitivity, and glucose use. They help your body heal from the inside out, support better circulation, and boost your immune system too. That means you are better able to fight off infections from outside the body and even cancer-related threats inside the body. All of that is absolutely critical for a long and healthy life. To get the most out of yogurt, choose one with live active cultures. That should be on the label. Also choose plain whole yogurt, not low-fat and not pre-sweetened yogurt. Whole yogurt gives you the most benefit and does not raise cholesterol. And if you want to make it sweeter, do it the Greek way. Add some seasonal fruit and a little drizzle of organic honey on top. And finally, eggs. Eggs used to be one of those unfairly feared foods. They got a bad reputation back in the 1970s, mostly because people worried about cholesterol. But modern research has shown that eggs are actually one of nature's most complete foods. They are nutrient-dense, they are packed with protein, and that protein is super important for health span. They also contain carotenoids, which are bioactive compounds that support eye health and brain health. And modern research now tells us that eggs are actually protective when it comes to cardiovascular health. Back in the 70s, people used to say, eggs contain cholesterol, so they must raise your cholesterol. But that turned out to be the wrong conclusion. Large population studies have found that people who regularly consume more eggs had about a 10% to 12% lower risk of having a stroke. And that is a major deal, because around 12 million people around the world suffer a stroke every year. And more than that, eggs continue to show up in research as a valuable part of a nutrient-rich diet that supports overall healthy aging.